The morning light entered Olivia's office like a polite guest, piercing through the glass blinds and scattering golden reflections over the organized desks of Imperial Logistics. The city was waking up outside, but inside, the world had been pulsing for hours, like a silent gear of numbers, reports, and decisions that sustained millions. Olivia loved that order. There was something comforting in knowing that, at least on spreadsheets, everything made sense. Numbers didn't betray, they didn't disappear without warning, and they didn't promise what they couldn't deliver. As the chief accountant, she was the invisible axis of Henry's company, the financial heart that kept every sector breathing. They had been together for 7 years. It hadn't been a sweeping romance like in the movies, but a patient construction made of shared mornings, bills paid together, comfortable silences, and small promises kept without fanfare. Henry was a man of restrained gestures, a consistently firm voice, a presence that occupied space without needing to impose itself. "You are my north, Olivia," he would often say, while they drank coffee on the balcony of the luxury apartment he had insisted on buying for the two of them, watching the city that seemed to grow beneath their feet. At home, joy had a name: Sophia. The 10-year-old girl, Olivia's daughter from a previous relationship, had been welcomed by Henry as if she had always been part of his story. He helped with homework, attended school meetings, and watched swimming championships from the bleachers with a pride that warmed Olivia's chest. Sophia called him Uncle Henry, but deep down everyone knew he was a father in every way, except on paper. Routine was Olivia's refuge. Preparing breakfast, dropping Sophia at school, braving the traffic to the office, resolving financial crises, and returning home feeling that, despite everything, there was stability. But there was that drawer. Sometimes, while Henry was showering or taking a call, Olivia would open his desk drawer and see the same papers, documents for a divorce that never seemed to reach an end. Expired dates, unfinished petitions, missing signatures. A subtle chill ran down her spine whenever she stared at them for too long. She chose to ignore it. Stability was a blanket too warm to be thrown away because of a doubt. And so, day after day, Olivia continued believing that what was solid did not need to be questioned. Emotional dependence is a silk rope. It is soft, delicate to the touch, but it binds you just the same. Olivia knew this, even if she didn't know how to name it. Her identity had become intertwined with Henry's so deeply that, when looking at herself, she no longer saw only the woman she had been before. She wasn't just Olivia. She was the partner of the great businessman, the respected woman in the hallways of Imperial Logistics, the guardian of the fiscal secrets that sustained fortunes. At night, when the apartment plunged into silence and Sophia was asleep, Olivia lay beside Henry staring at the ceiling, fighting thoughts that insisted on surfacing. Why was the divorce never finalized? Why was there always a new lawyer, a new process, a new justification? Bureaucracy is slow, darling, but my heart is yours, he would repeat, kissing her forehead, like someone closing a conversation before it truly began. Olivia would smile, but the fear remained. She felt, deep in her chest, that her life was built like a glass house. Beautiful, bright, admirable from the outside, but fragile. Any stone, a missing signature, an unresolved paper, could shatter everything. Even so, she didn't bring it up. Because bringing it up meant risking loss. And losing Henry meant losing herself. The wound didn't bleed, but it ached. And she kept walking, pretending it didn't. The phone rang at 3:14 p.m. on an ordinary Tuesday. The company's number appeared on the screen. Olivia answered without imagining that this call would split her life in half. The secretary's voice was different, thin, trembling, disorganized. "Dr. Olivia." "Mr. Henry." He collapsed in the lobby. "The ambulance has already arrived." The following words were lost. Olivia's world went mute. The office seemed to tilt, the walls moved away, the air became too heavy for her lungs. She ran. She doesn't remember how she got to the hospital. She only remembers the smell of antiseptic and a doctor who couldn't hold her gaze. A massive heart attack. No pain. No time. Henry died before any goodbye could exist. The funeral was a blur of unknown faces, dark suits, and flowers that were too white, too heavy. Olivia held Sophia's hand while she felt the ground slip from beneath her feet. She didn't cry out loud. She didn't scream. She simply remained standing, as if falling were more dangerous than enduring. At the cemetery, she sat in the second row, feeling out of place, invisible. It was then that she saw her. In the front row was an elegant woman with a rigid posture and perfect makeup despite the mourning. The black veil did not hide the authority with which she wept. That was not the cry of a mistress. It was the cry of a wife. Someone whispered the name beside Olivia. Sophia Helena, his wife. The air left Olivia's lungs. Wife. The divorce, which Henry said he had been resolving for years, had never been signed. Amidst flowers, fresh earth, and a descending coffin, Olivia understood. Her entire life had been built on an incomplete truth. 3 days after the burial, reality knocked on the door. Not with consolation, but with documents. Helena wasn't looking for emotional revenge. She was looking for restitution. Supported by lawyers and the law, she moved every piece with surgical coldness. Henry was her legal husband, and everything he owned, now, was also hers. "You were just his accountant," Helena said, without anger, without shouting. The absence of emotion was crueler than any insult. In that week, Olivia lost her job. She lost the apartment. She lost the identity she believed she had. In 7 days, she became a woman with 3 suitcases, a daughter in the back seat of a used car, and no fixed address. The fall wasn't a stumble. It was a collapse. Rock bottom isn't a single place. It has floors, invisible steps, successive falls that happen just when you believe there is nowhere left to go down. Olivia rented a small room in the city's outskirts. The walls were thin, the window barely closed, and the sound of buses pierced through the night like a constant reminder that her life had shifted. Still, she tried to maintain an appearance of normalcy for Sophia. She prepared breakfast, straightened the school uniform, and smiled even when the mirror reflected a face too tired for someone her age. She looked for work tirelessly. She handed out resumes, asked for referrals, and sent emails that were never answered. Everywhere, the same uncomfortable silence arose when her last name was associated with the scandal. She was no longer seen as a competent professional, but as the other woman. Henry's shadow continued to follow her, even in death. Then, on an afternoon of heavy rain, when the sky seemed to collapse along with her resilience, everything got worse. Picking up Sophia from school, Olivia was driving slowly, but the road was treacherous. The car hydroplaned. The impact was dry, violent, too fast for any reaction. The sound of twisted metal echoed like a final snap. Olivia came out with a few scratches. Nothing serious. Sophia, in the back seat, wasn't crying. "Mommy, I can't feel my legs." The hospital confirmed what Olivia feared. A complex spinal injury. Urgent surgery. The risk of never walking again was real. The public health system had endless lines. The private insurance had been cancelled days after Henry's death, one of Helena's first administrative decisions. Olivia was without money, without stability, and now with a daughter whose childhood hung by a thread. She didn't cry that day. She simply held Sophia's hand and promised something she didn't know how to fulfill. The public hospital corridor was cold, long, and impersonal. Olivia spent hours sitting there, watching people pass by with their own dramas, while she felt the crushing weight of failure. She looked at her own hands. The same hands that had managed millions, closed impeccable balance sheets, and sustained entire companies. Now, they were unable to afford even a proper bandage. It was a feeling of silent humiliation. That was when she overheard a conversation between 2 nurses. If it were with Dr. Marcello. He's the only one who performs that nerve reconstruction technique in the country. Olivia jotted down the name almost without thinking. When she searched on her phone, she felt the blood drain from her face. Dr. Marcello Albuquerque. Helena's younger brother. Destiny wasn't just being cruel. It was being ironic. The man who could save Sophia belonged to the same family that had left her with nothing. At that moment, something shifted inside Olivia. Pride, which until then still resisted, began to crumble. She understood it was no longer about her. It was about her daughter. And for Sophia, she would do the unthinkable. Pride is a luxury a mother cannot afford. Olivia spent 2 days rehearsing what she would say. She walked around the small room, repeated sentences, erased them, and started over. Nothing seemed enough when her own daughter's life was at stake. On the morning of the 3rd day, she took a deep breath and went to Marcello's clinic. She didn't ask to see him as Henry's ex. She asked as Sophia's mother. Helena was there, leaving her brother's office. The encounter was inevitable. The silence in the hallway felt solid. Olivia felt the lump in her throat, but she walked toward her. And then, she did something she never imagined she would do. She knelt. Not out of humiliation, but out of surrender. Helena, you took everything I had. Perhaps the law says that was your right. But my daughter is not to blame for our choices. Please, let your brother save her. Helena didn't answer immediately. She just looked at Olivia as if, for the first time, she saw someone beyond the rival life had imposed on her. Marcello agreed to operate on Sophia. It was 10 hours of surgery. 10 hours of waiting, fear, and hope. When he came out of the room, his face exhausted, he simply said, "She will walk." Olivia cried, as if all the suffering finally found an exit. During the recovery, something unexpected happened. Helena began visiting the hospital. First in silence. Then, bringing books, toys, and timid words. One afternoon over bitter coffee in the hospital cafeteria, Helena spoke. "Henry lied to both of us. I kept the marriage out of pride. You kept his life going out of love. In the end, we were victims of the same man." There, between the smell of antiseptic and the beeping monitors, enmity transformed into a painful and deeply human understanding. Meaning of the journey. 1 year later, Sophia took her first steps without crutches in the garden of a small rented house, simple but full of light. Olivia watched, feeling that this moment was worth more than everything she had lost. She now worked for an NGO providing legal assistance to women in vulnerable positions, using her knowledge to protect those who, like her, once had no voice. Helena and Olivia didn't become friends, but they became allies. Henry's company was liquidated, and Helena ensured a fair portion was set aside for Sophia's education fund. Olivia learned that true wealth isn't in what you possess under someone else's roof, but in what you build within yourself when everything collapses. She was no longer Henry's woman. She was Olivia. Whole, strong, and finally at peace. If you are listening to this story now, perhaps you too are going through a moment where everything seems to be falling apart. Perhaps you have lost someone, a dream, security, or even yourself along the way. But remember, rock bottom is not the end, it is the ground from which strength is born. You are not defined by your losses. You are molded by the choices you make after them. If this story touched your heart, if at any moment you recognized yourself in Olivia's journey, leave a comment below saying, "I will rise again." This isn't just for the algorithm, it's a commitment to yourself. Subscribe to the channel to receive more stories that heal, inspire, and strengthen. Share this video with someone who needs hope today. Because sometimes, the change you're waiting for begins with a simple story, and the decision not to give up.